All right, happy August, fellow Wotive players from the global side. It is time to do a little bit of a review for New Helena, but also we're going to comment just a little bit on the global news. So at the start of this, I'm just going to say for people who aren't going to wait for the video, Majin Vina, or Dark Vina as she is known on global, is an incredibly good unit, and McLeod is also a pretty awesome ice unit that will synergize with some range units in the future. For more on why these units are good, please expect a separate video at some point in the future, but it seems like relating to this video that global will not be getting your summer units just quite yet. You might have to wait about another week or so, it seems like. Let's just scroll through the global news really quickly here. Yeah, you guys are getting a vision card on August the 10th, which is interesting. That is a little bit... No, never mind. That lines up perfectly. So I guess the earliest that Global will end up seeing the unit that we are talking about in today's video is probably not until the 17th at the very earliest, short of there being a surprise banner the following week. And honestly, that's okay. Majin Vina / Dark Vina is a really great unit, and I do want to make a talk about her later, but we're going to sum up a fair bit about Helena in this video. And for people who want to see like stuff about how she performs, Odaiba Diver is a JP player as well who actually I do believe pulled for the unit and has been testing her out. So, you know, for me, I'm not getting her for a very specific reason that I'll also get around to explaining in another video, but I have no interest in pulling Helena, mainly just for alternate reasons. But this video I'm going to explain a little bit about overall my general thoughts about her, my final thoughts about her, and who this unit is actually for. So yeah, if you're looking for actual like video footage of her performance, you can check that out in the video I posted yesterday. But now that the rest of her data is on Wotive Calc, we can see some other stuff. So just to summarize again, Lightning 100 cost unit, Swimsuit Helena, she is a limited time unit on JP. I don't think that the global swimsuit units were ever permanent. I do believe that they are limited time units, but not 100% sure on that because I don't play the global side at all. Anyway, but on JP, very much a limited time unit. An offensive character for definitive testing and looking at her kit. Pros are as follows: offensive killers with wide AoEs, which is incredibly good for lap and farming. TMR with magic human killer on it, which I don't need to explain why that's good. We now know that it's for, you know, not only her but allies, and it's a total of 25 off the TMR, and it gets 2 uses on it. While I get that some people would prefer not to think about this unit as TMR fodder, and I really don't think that Helena is TMR fodder at all, but I do think that that TMR is very important for people who really like mages and magic damage killer. This TMR should at least be on your radar as a possible consideration to go for, just because. Continuing on, if you hate evasion, good news for you. Fair amount of sure hit with even some bonuses and benefits that kind of ruin evasion. The 2 that we saw, there is one that absorbs HP, 30% of the damage that's done, that's AoE. That ability is a sure hit ability, and you know, it's just going to keep Helena alive, which is really good. Helena does have Immortal Spirit in her Paladin, so she can potentially take a fatal hit, restore all of her HP, and keep going. But after that, it's questionable. The other one that I was talking about yesterday on stream and in my video was a 100% hit chance on a single target that also decreases evasion rate by 30 for 3 turns to the target that gets hit. Not only is Helena potentially good for dealing with evasion, she's also potentially getting good at other people dealing with evasion. So if you hate evasion, this is definitely a character I think you're going to like. Next up, survival skills. So I've already talked about Paladin. The most major important thing that she has with Paladin is the Immortal Spirit. She only gets a single use out of it, which is a little... How do I say this? Not as good as some of the newer units that have potentially double casting of those abilities, making Helena slightly underperform on that. As for White Mage, she does have some healing, and she does have Raise and Isuna. Both of those, or all of those things, are potentially good. Whether or not her AI will actually target it is pretty unlikely, and for the most part, White Mage's kit without any really high level ability is pretty flat and not super exciting from my point of view. So White Mage is mostly something I would consider to be, I mean, it's nice to be there, but you're almost certainly never going to equip it, especially when another Thunder unit, and a Mage specifically, is so good at healing. That is not Helena's job. I guess it's just a bonus. As for Paladin, Paladin is probably what you're going to be most equipping for like PvP, but outside of that, I don't think it's necessarily the one you want to run. If you're doing auto farming, I think you're going to be running her main job. And this is where we get into the last little bit of survival skills. In the main part of her kit, she does have a restore HP and TP for herself. The TP restore is actually really important for her kit, as we'll talk about in the next bullet point. But really, the thing that I like a lot here is that heal, as I tested yesterday, was about a 7,000 to 8,000 HP heal, which is pretty good. As for resistances, she does have good sword resistance, and she does have good magic and shooting resistance from the build that we saw on the friend unit yesterday, but not so much against spear, and there's a particular earth spear unit. Probably this unit would be pretty terrified to go up against. Alright, now, to talk about one more thing that I think is really important here, he does have a buff ability that is really good for both physical or magical teams, which is kind of important because Lightning has some good mages, but more importantly, it has a lot of good offensive characters. So Helena could be put, this version of Helena could be put with a mage team, a physical team, or multiple element teams, and her buff that does either 40% attack or 40% magic, depending on which one, the unit's really going to get the most out of, that's the one that, they'll be using with their skills, is what I mean, is just a good support skill for multi-type teams, both physical and magical. So that's good. She can potentially be good on all of that. Now, talking really quickly about her most interesting thing is definitively and 100% her TP boost. Out of all units in the game, we've never seen a unit before with a TP boost. So basically, if she casts her buff ability, she gets an effect for 3 turns, I do believe, where her abilities will end up using up TP to give herself a damage boost. And yesterday, it was a pretty significant damage boost. It pushed one of her large AoE attacks up to dealing about 1,600 points of damage against fairly weak enemies, but it's a neat way of potentially scoring a little bit extra damage to make sure that your enemies die. And that's just really strong. That's just really powerful, and it's really neat. I wish it was on a non-limited unit, and eventually it will be on a non-limited unit, but it's cool to see this effect come into the game. As for the only other thing I want to mention in pros, one of her large AoEs not only has a chance to inflict stop, but it can also dispel Immortal Spirit / Guts to survive a fatal hit. So, on a big AoE, that's pretty good. The only other issue I kind of see with her, I guess we can start getting into the cons, is the negative part of her range. A lot of her abilities, while having, good range on it and large AoEs, her range isn't anything spectacular, and it won't get any bit improved. And that kind of talks, let's just go into the other ones. Cons, not a multi-role character. She is definitively 100% not a tank. She can be a brawly magic type character, but that's about it. She's not going to be a healer, and she's not going to be a tank at all. So she is basically offense only, and that's pretty good. As for when I was testing her yesterday, she does have height issues. Unlike classic Helena, kind of like classic Coke. Well, no, wait, that's not true because classic Helena is like an MR. Sorry. UR Dark Helena has really not much limitations on how good she is capable of striking other units. And this unit does have those issues. She did have issues trying to hit units that were of higher elevation, so that's a problem with her potentially being a good farmer. And she is just hard to justify. There are a lot of great lightning units and not necessarily a lot of need for her on the team. There's already a great healer in the game. There's already good brawly characters, especially on both JP and Global have some characters the other version doesn't have right now, and still it's kind of hard to recommend. Like you look at JP, we have Lightning and 120. God damn it. Orlando. Can't believe that name escaped my mind for even a second. But both of those units are really good, and on Global has, for instance, Ibarra and Esther. Both are really great units, and eventually, it just might be, hey, I already have all this stuff. I can't see this being the next thing, and that's the thing. Helena, for being a really solid and great unit for different parts of the game, is nothing groundbreaking and is nothing that is going to really alter the way that the game is played or viewed or any of the meta. It's just going to be a really solid unit that's very good. Next up, definitively is a unit that is missing some of the really good things that make a lot of offensive units better offensive units. And what I mean by that is effectively, she doesn't have things like barrier penetration or destruction. She doesn't have a terrible large amount of ways of increasing her spirit penetration either, so she'll be kind of almost like dependent on other sources for that. And while in the sub part of her main job, she has a lightning resistance penetration and a magic attack resistance penetration, it does mean that you are trading off running Paladin for that. So it's either like sure that she's going to be damaged and she's incredibly brittle, or she's very good at taking a hit, but it might not matter because she may not be able to do much damage. And someone pointed out that one of her abilities was in fact non-reflectable. That is very good against Helena. It just depends if the AI can actually parse it properly and gets the opportunity to use it. Or not, but if that non-reflectable ability is good against Celeste, then she is another alternative to beat water teams, though on the JP side, it's not a big consideration right now anyway. So let's switch over to this. Who do I think this unit is for? First of all, I think that she is for mage players. I think that mage people will be very happy to have this unit because she is very strong. I've proven that already, but more importantly, her TMR cannot be understated that it is important for mage-based players. Having a ability that gives extra human killers for mages means you're less dependent on vision cards. It means you're less dependent on other sources of mage killing that just may never come. So, for a limited TMR, it's a really good limited TMR. Thunder collectors and Helena fans will be happy, but those are the people who are probably already interested in it anyway. And for people who are really looking to build the Thunder team, who are still missing certain things, this is a good unit. This is a great unit to have. If you're new to the game, you could do a heck of a lot worse than this unit as a unit to start on your account, because she will be particularly good, and her plus another Helena will just make a solid farm team, regardless of elemental synergies or whatnot. So yeah, at the end of all of this, without too much beautiful animation, here you go. Here's something to balance that out. Honestly, I consider Helena to be a really solid unit. A great offensive unit that will, be very good for laps and everything. But honestly, she's not a must-have. She's not a meta changer. She's not a game changer, and that's fine. It's fine to have strong units that are not constantly warping the meta, but does provide enough solid value between her TMR and her main part of her kit. Everything here is very strong, especially the amount of anti-evasion, which I think will probably sell pretty well to people who are still frustrated with evasion. This unit can do really well, and I think the people who get her will be very happy with her regardless. But for everyone else, it's a plenty good time to save and consider your alternatives for other units to bolster your profile, portfolio, so on and so forth, metaphors for your game. Anyway, hope you found this interesting and useful. I'll try and potentially get some more footage of her AI in progress, in situation, in situ, in future videos. So thank you so much, and see you.